Hello, everyone, and welcome to Nerdy for 30, the podcast where we talk about nerdy-ish things for 30-ish minutes. My name is Kevin Bauer. With me, as always, is my co-host, Tim Keck.
Hey, gang.
Oh, I still like Sup Dogs better, but we'll see.
Every time I am completely caught off guard by it. I don't know. So we set a dangerous precedent. Completely forgot we were doing that. I was like, Kevin's talking. I have a good 30 seconds to mentally prepare for this. And I don't anymore. So it's good. It's keeping me on my toes. Got to get my mind in the game.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Starting us off on a real strong foot. Hey, speaking of strong feet.
Oh.
Today we are going to be talking about the movie The Woman King.
WikiFeed has a whole article dedicated to The Woman King.
Oh,
God. A lot of barefooted babes in this.
Oh, God, I don't want to know that shit. I want to clarify right away. Neither one of us are foot guys. There was one moment in this movie that made me specifically think like, oh, my God, that would hurt their feet so bad, which is when they went through the graduation ritual and they're going through like those thorny bushes and then they just have to run through like dirt. And it's like, holy shit. The fact that nobody just has a million infections is crazy. But that society that they're in, Dahomey, it's like a very idyllic place. So maybe even the dirt in Dahomey is ideal. It's pristine. Tim, what do you think of The Woman King?
What did I think of The Woman King? I liked it. I thought it was good. I thought it was like a solid, decent, like B action movie, you know? It was good. It was cool. I think the setting was what separates it from other action movies, and I enjoyed it a lot. I don't think it's a setting or combination of characters that we see too often. I mean, it was great that Viola Davis is like leading the charge here, and then it gets kind of like it's like early, and then it's deep in like Africa, involved with like the slave trade, and they present it in like a very kind of like complicated way, which I thought was very interesting, and I loved it. We can talk more about it, but I thought the setting for this, I think if you take away the setting, it's just like a regular old B action movie, but the setting of it and you know, kind of the context of it is what makes it a above average action movie to me. What'd you think, Kev?
Right on. I'm right there with you. I really liked this movie. I felt like it kind of lost some steam toward the end, which it was a situation that I feel like is so different from most of the movies we talked about in 2022, because I feel like I could have used more of this movie. It felt like we were heading somewhere really incredible for like the first, I'll say, hour and 15 of this movie. It was just like, holy shit, this movie rules. Everyone's firing on all cylinders. I love every character. I love the setting. This is wonderful. Fight scenes are all super cool in the first half of this movie. And then I really do feel like we lost a lot of momentum once we got into the back half, which is just kind of like two fight scenes that are like one fight scene that's just like fine. It's like, okay, it's good, but it's not as cool as the one that was earlier in the movie. And then kind of a strange lull that hits for a minute, and then we get a fight scene that's better. It's got that insane scene where Viola Davis gets like stabbed through the arm and then flips the blade around and stabs the guy through her own arm. Nuts. And then a very sweet ending, and we're out. It felt so abrupt after all the setup of the first half. And I feel like I would have liked to see this stretched out to the 3-hour mark, explore more of the historical side of it. I want to see a little bit more. We got a little bit of that tension between Viola Davis and one of the wives, where Naniska was kind of accusing, I don't know the wife's name, but Naniska was kind of
wife number one.
Like, wife number one. Yeah, there we go. Was saying basically that she's just kind of jockeying for power. And I would love to see a little bit more of that. Give me a little Game of Thrones here. Like, give me a little bit more behind the scenes. I know there was meat on that bone. I want to see it.
Yeah, there were some very interesting touches in this movie that I liked a lot. The relationships seem very complicated because John Boyega's character is like the king. And I feel like initially I'm like, oh, this is like a douchey, spoiled brat. And then it seems like he's like incredibly competent and knows what he's doing. And he speaks like 5 languages. And it's like, okay, so, and then it's like, well, he's like a sexist pig or whatever. And it's like, no, well, Viola Davis, he has like the utmost respect for and listens to her over everybody. And he has this woman army who like is in charge, that he trusts more than his like male army, even though it seems like the guys are also mixing it up there at the end. It's interesting. It's just very complicated. It's just a very complicated social structure. This guy simultaneously respects Viola Davis's opinion on like all matters. And then he has 8 wives, which I feel like just seems like contradictory ideas in a way. Right. And even their discussion of slavery is interesting because I feel like, you know, even though there's people now who don't even want us to learn about slavery in this country. But I feel like the rudimentary, like Florida education I got is like, you know, slavery bad. Americans invented it. But like it's all much more complicated than that, where like there were tribes in Africa who were enslaving each other and like taking war prisoners. And then these Europeans came in and like capitalized on it. And I think there was like more level of respect, or there was more of a code to what was happening in Africa, and more of like an ethical.
Are you basically saying that like you think that like this movie gave the impression that maybe it like started off as something different, and then when it was adopted as a practice by basically white people, it became something a lot more malevolent?
I think so. I think my impression, what I thought of before, which again, somebody's listening to this and they want to correct me, feel free. But I know slavery was happening in Africa at the time that Europeans arrived. And there was something like where they would go to war with other tribes, which they kind of touch on in this movie. And if one tribe beats the other tribe, then they would take war prisoners almost, and those people would work as slaves for them. And there was some sort of like an exchange that would happen occasionally where it was like, oh, you owe somebody something, or to like broker a peace between tribes, you would give them slaves. And they weren't, I don't think they were like beaten and tortured the way Europeans like to do, or at least Americans like to do, to the same extent. I thought there was more of like a war prisoner. I thought there was more of like a code to it. Whereas these Europeans come in and they're just like, hey, there's no honor in this at all. We're just taking you, you're an object, and we're bringing you to America where you're an object, you know?
Interesting. I don't think
I
disagree.
Any of it was good.
I don't think there's ever been a good time.
I don't think there's ever been good slavery.
It was like, yeah.
I'm going to keep saying slavery is bad because I feel like people are going to say I'm not. I think the nuances of it are very interesting and complicated with the overarching theme that it is bad. And I think it's interesting to see, we see slavery presented in a number of different ways in this movie as just kind of like the backdrop. And I thought it was really interesting, and it's complicated, and it's neat to, you know, learn stuff and see that. Am I getting us canceled, Kevin?
Maybe a little bit. It depends on people taking clips out of context. I just want to clarify again. So yeah, you're just talking about like the degree to which that oppression existed is just
there are just all these systems in place, you know. I mean, that's very like, I guess, like, you know, discussed now, and like I guess very like left wing, like liberal stuff of like all these systemic racism and like all these systems in place that like perpetuate a way of being where like, you know, not to be too big a bummer, but the planet is like fucking dying right now, and there's like nothing we can do to stop it because corporations are already doing this thing, you know. Like this is a bad analogy, but things are out of our hand. There's this system in place that is destroying the earth, and it is like bigger than all of us. And so we can arm ourselves or put solar panels on a house or like recycle or whatever you want to do, and it will not have an impact on this like bigger system. And I think that's something that you see in this, where it's like, you know, these wives, like that's obviously a thing they feel like they need to do in order to get social status and like move up. These warriors, there's only so many options for them, right? Like the woman at the beginning of the movie, or our protagonist, she can either be a wife or she can be a warrior. Those are the only two options in her society. She has no other mobility. She can't She can't be a small business owner. That's just not an option for her. She's a warrior or she's married to somebody. That is her purpose. And obviously, even John Boyega's character is like recognizes that each of these women is like their own independent, intelligent human being. But at the same time, they are all beholden to this system that separates everybody into these boxes that they just can't get out of pretty much no matter what. So there's like all these complicated relationships, friendships, like all these nuances occurring between them. But everybody is still very much stuck in their lane. The system is very rigid in this world. And there are relationships between that, but nothing one-ups the system that they're in.
Which is interesting because that's kind of like the enlightened viewpoint that Dahomey in general is coming from in this movie. Like I had to look the guy's name up. He was the one that was speaking Portuguese in Dahomey. Santo Ferreira, I guess was the character's name. When he's basically saying like, you want to sell palm oil? Are you crazy? Like,
right.
To connect it back to your analogy, that would be as if somebody was like, just like one small corporation was like, you know what? We're not going to partake in anything that's going to damage the planet anymore. Yeah. Like one small corporation. And then it's like, Santo Ferreira is like a representative from Coca-Cola or like Nestle. And he's going like, what are you talking about? Like, this is insane. When in reality, they're the people that are actually trying to activate that change.
They're discussing the morality of this issue. Yeah. And they're saying slavery is bad, especially, what these European guys are doing. They're just taking all these people from their homes and doing God knows what with them. And they're mistreating all these people. Let's do like the morally right thing and get out of it. And let's see if we can come up with this alternate thing. And then you can just see how that system is like not going to work. They're talking about palm oil and the Europeans are like, we don't give a shit about palm oil. This is like the only thing like human beings is the only currency that we are trafficking in this situation. And it's really interesting. I think that whole situation is like, it's sad and it's demoralizing and it's interesting and it's complex. And I think it's great. I think it's a great backdrop for an action movie. I thought it was cool. And I'd like any opportunity we get, I guess we see that from, maybe my ignorance, but like, even like watching RRR or even, Parasite or Everything Everywhere All at Once, where I'm like getting exposed to like a culture that I'm not necessarily a part of or a piece of history that I'm not that aware of. It's an awesome backdrop for these action movies or these other movies that would otherwise be pretty generic, Oh, I've never watched a Jason Statham movie and been like, oh, so that's what it was like, being a medieval serf, I saw he has like some movie where he's like the lone king or something like that. Like he's a king, but his character's name is Farmer. And he's just like a guy who farms and he has to like become the king. And I've never like watched any of these movies and been like, wow. So that's how like the serfdom worked in medieval, whatever, England. I don't know. There's this educational value that we get from being exposed to new things. And I think this was another example of that.
Yeah. And it's definitely a great place to root for characters coming from, like a starting point for your protagonists. I was laughing with Lauren at the beginning of the movie. So Naui in the beginning refuses to marry this fucking awful dude. And her punishment is she's sent to heaven. Like the place that she is sent to, like the inner workings of Dahomey, like granted, you have to become a fucking intense warrior. Like this is not an easy thing that she's going to have to do. But it's like this world, this society, especially this is 200 years ago, I think. It said 1823 on the opening title card. It's like enlightened by today's standards. Like it's incredible. It was wonderful. And to see kind of where she came from before and like what her life almost looked like. And then the fact that like, it's just a nice piece of irony at the beginning of a movie that her adoptive father thinks he's punishing her in a way. And in reality, it's like, nope, welcome to the best place currently on the planet.
Well, yes and no, right? Because she's essentially like a slave in that mind mode too, right? She's getting taken to this place. She can't like date who she wants. She can't do what she wants. She has to live in this place. There are all these rules she has to follow. Okay, that's cool. That's cool. They have great lives and they get to do art in their spare time. But when it's time to fight, they have to fucking fight, or they're going to get thrown out of paradise and then they have to be married, or they're just going to be, or they're trashed on the side of the street, right? Like they are being put into a system that is very rigid, and if they deviate from that, they're out of luck. So It's not like she has a ton of other options. She doesn't have any other options. She can marry some guy that doesn't want to marry, or she can be a warrior. And those are the only things that are presented to her. They're like, yeah, you don't have to do this. It's like the illusion of choice, right? Like, you don't have to do this, but if you don't, you'll probably die, or you won't have a home, or she has no other option, really. So, I don't know. Does she have it as bad as the people that are being thrown into cages and like brought back to Europe or wherever? I mean, no, but she isn't free. It doesn't seem like anyone in this movie is free. It seems like, I don't know if we're getting too meta with this, but like everyone has their obligations. Everyone has like these rules that they have to follow. They're all in like part of a structure, and it seems like nobody in this movie really gets to do what they want. Ever. I don't know. I feel like I'm being a real bummer on this because this is a pretty lighthearted movie. I thought this movie's funny.
The thing is, it really is. It's like
this movie is funny.
One of the more lighthearted things we've watched.
It really is. I saw this. There was some line in there that was like, I wrote down like, always listen to. There's like one rule to surviving here. Always listen to Ismail. I'm Ismail. And it's like there's just so many of those. They're like, their banter is great. There's so many like one-off jokes that are fun. It is very cool. And the fighting is great. The violence is awesome. It is just a cool movie. I think this is like a PG-13 too, which was PG-13. And I was like, I don't know what PG-13 used to be. I feel like when we were growing up, it was like no blood. And I thought people were bleeding. I mean, things are happening. She's getting stabbed in the arm and stabbing people with it. Yeah. Like it was gruesome, man. It was some rough stuff.
Oh my God, dude. The bone getting put back together. That was an intense scene. This was just, I really do think that this was like a very motivational, like inspiring movie. It just, anytime you're seeing people that are accomplishing incredible physical feats and like pulling off acts that require a great deal of willpower, it's impossible to not be kind of moved by that. I mean, I felt myself getting misty when Naui completed the challenge. She chopped that head off the mannequin first. I was like, fuck yeah, she did it. There's a thing on The Ringer Bill Simmons talked about one time, for something to be a great sports movie, it has to have at least one moment that gives you chills. And I feel like that's maybe a bar that was cleared here. That moment was like, that battle was so sick. Like, she goes back, she saves her friend, she looks. The other girl is pretty much at the top of the tower. She climbs up after. Fuck it, I'm going to have to jump. It was awesome. She makes it through those guys. She just fucking clocks one in the jaw, knocks his ass out. It was so cool. I mean, it felt like watching Moneyball or something, where it's like somebody's like, was it Jeremy Giambi goes up and just smashes that home run? Very similar feeling.
I wonder if you felt the same way, but I had no idea what was going to happen for whatever reason in this. I don't know why. It seems like a very basic movie to me, but for some reason, the whole time I was like, anyone can die. If Viola Davis dies in this scene, I would not be surprised. If the girl dies, if anybody dies at any moment, I will not be surprised at all. If she fails this tryout, I won't be surprised. If she gets second place, I won't be surprised. If she wins, I won't be surprised. You know, it just felt like anything can happen in this world they've created, which is a very fun way to watch a movie. I feel like most of the time, my writing brain is just like figuring everything out. And this time, for whatever reason, I was just like, I have no clue what they're trying to do here. Like, what's the point? What is going on here? What are they trying to do? It was very fun.
It was great. The cast was strong enough that it is a situation where it's like, any one of these, you can make the argument they're going to survive because they're like, you know, a known actor. But also, by the same token, they could die because this could be their Oscar-winning moment. Like, this death scene could really do it.
Right.
I didn't see I will say I did not see Izogi's death coming, Lashana Lynch. When she got shot, I was like, how the fuck did I not see that this was going to happen? She
That one
crossed the
sucked.
threshold,
That
dude.
sucked real bad.
Oh, she was so much fun. That also, Lashana Lynch in this movie made the first Captain Marvel movie burn so much more, because all I can ever think of with the first Captain Marvel movie, we wasted so much time with that character not knowing who she was when we could have just gotten Top Gun with superheroes. We had Lashana Lynch in that movie already. Picture Top Gun with Lashana Lynch. It's the 90s. Brie Larson could pull that off. It would be a blast. Yeah, she's the best friend. She's Rambeau in that movie.
Wow.
Yeah.
God, I knew she looked familiar. The whole time I was like, where do I know this person from? Probably other stuff too. I know she's been in a lot of things.
She was also in, I was going to make a shitty joke. I was going to say she was Multiverse of Madness too. But like, it burns to see how cool she is in this movie. I don't know that I've seen her in anything else, but like within the first 4 minutes of this movie, I'm like, they fucking wasted her. They should have done so much more with her.
I think they needed her. The story needed her. I think she's very involved in it, but she's also not the protagonist. So, and somebody needs to die. Viola Davis didn't die. Spoiler alert. So they needed something for her to do. But I thought she played a great, like, big sister role, you know, and they bonded over stuff. And she kind of like was a mentor for Nawi in a way that I thought was great.
Sorry to clarify. I mean, they wasted her in Captain Marvel.
Oh, in Captain Marvel,
in this movie, I think she was
now I'm
incredible.
like, they definitely did.
Fan.
If they don't have her as like a bigger part in the Marvels, then they just kind of wasted everything.
I mean, she's dead. She's old. She died in the blip.
She died in the blip?
Yeah, Tanoia Paris in WandaVision. Like that scene where she gets blipped back. She's in the hospital with her mom, which was Lashana Lynch's character, and died during the blip. Gone.
Wow. So they just murdered her. I forgot about that scene.
Yeah.
Damn. Well, that's a bummer.
Totally.
I guess
wasted.
we don't need to watch the Marvels then.
Maybe I would love a flashback. Like if they just got fucking like Tony Scott to do like a flashback scene that takes place at Flight Academy. Just give us 15 minutes of the movie Captain Marvel 1 could have been.
They could easily do some flashbacks, really flush out Brie Larson's character a little bit.
Yeah.
Give her some
we're not
more,
talking about Captain Marvel anymore.
No,
today.
let's not. I don't really want to. I want to talk about this movie more. You know what I thought was a great move, which I guess is kind of switching subjects a little bit here. I like that we can't understand. Well, I can't understand the Europeans who are visiting. You know, they make the choice that our main characters are all speaking English for the show because it's an American movie, and that the Europeans are the ones that we can't understand in this thing. And I thought it was great. Maybe that's like an obvious thing, but I thought it was a cool detail where they're going back between English and then Portuguese. And I don't even think we don't always get translations for it. Like sometimes it's just the European guys talking to each other. I think it was Portuguese, right?
Yeah.
I thought that was great. It was super cool. Just felt like very much like on the team of it really helped me like feel like I was on on their team, and like very like it made the Portuguese feel like foreigners and like, just separate. It just created this like distance between me as like an audience member and these characters who were like invaders, and like they brought their outside culture here. It seems like, I know maybe that's like, it's just Portuguese. So it's not like the scariest thing ever. But as far as like a movie technique, I think it's great. I think it accomplished what it needed to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that touch. Very, very good one. Man.
There was I did have a beef. The only other beef I had that I wrote down was there's a scene where they're like in the back of the wagon, and Nawe tells one of the girls to roll out and get help. And I was kind of like, why didn't everybody roll out? What was preventing everybody else from rolling out of the wagon? Like, why couldn't they all roll? What's going on?
You're going to notice the whole wagon gone. You're not going to notice one girl gone.
You just wait a little bit and then roll out herself and then just keep going and see what's up. I don't know. I liked it though. I thought this was good. Kevin,
Yeah.
any beefs and thieves you got?
Oh boy. I mean, resounding thief, is not a shocker. Viola Davis. I mean, holy mother of God. She's good. I was a fan going into this. I know you're a fan of hers as well.
Yeah, she's great.
Documented on the pod. I learned doing research for this movie. I didn't know she had an EGOT. Makes sense. She's got the EGOT.
That's pretty recent, right?
Yeah, I did. I wanted to pick your brain on this because the cool thing about Viola Davis to me is that she can do it all. Where she can do these action sequences and she's completely believable. We've talked about the badass factor extensively on this podcast. There are some actors that are wonderful actors, but they do not have the badass factor. And when you see them in a fight, you're like, I don't buy it.
Yeah.
She also can do like very quiet, dramatic roles in dramas very well. She knows how to handle any different type of scene. She can do different cadences and different types of movies. And I was thinking about actors that we typically see that we associate with being movie stars, because I think she's inarguably like in the pantheon of great movie stars. And I was thinking about other people that we associate with movie stardom. And I feel like they're normally really good at one of those wheelhouses, but it's rare to find someone that crosses over. Because you take like Chris Hemsworth, someone that's definitely considered a modern day movie star, knows how to draw your attention when they're on screen. Obviously very good when he's Thor, but when you put him into a dramatic role, it's hit and miss. Like very uneven results. He puts on a pair of glasses and you might get something good, but you might get something bad.
Yeah. All of a sudden he's a hacker.
Yeah. Even Brad Pitt, when he does these like dramatic roles, there's like a very Brad Pittiness to it where I'm not super blown away that it's, you know, Brad Pitt doing this role. The guy to bring Moneyball back, the guy who plays in Moneyball, isn't that far from the guy who plays in The Big Short, you know? So like, can you think of any other actors off the top of your head that have the ability to kind of work in both worlds here?
I don't know. That's a good question. I'm kind of asking myself right now, is Viola Davis playing in both worlds? I don't know if I'm sold on that necessarily. I don't know if I necessarily see. Right. Like I watched some like How to Get Away with Murder, and she's great in that. We've seen her in like Justice League stuff, right? Where she's just kind of like a badass, but she's kind of always, everything I've seen her in is playing like a very quote unquote strong woman, like very assertive. She's in charge. She's like high powered. She's like high status. She is like stern with people. You don't want to piss her off. You know, she's like kind of this boss. And then there's moments when you see her cry, then she'll give you moments of vulnerability, but she always has like a hard, cold exterior that she's presenting to people. So I feel like she's kind of throwing the same pitches every time. I mean, Woman King, she got jacked and she's like physically throwing people around, which I don't know if I buy. It feels like Liam Neeson-ish to me a little bit. I think she's great in it, but she is like a 57-year-old lady doing this. I mean, I don't know if I need, once you cross your 50s, for any actor, male or female, maybe think about doing these things. I mean, even Keanu, I'm like, John Wick, amazing, so good. I think we're going to talk about that next week. He's not falling to the ground as much as he used to, legs are a little stiff. He's like Andre the Giant versus Hulk Hogan. He's leaning on the ropes. These guys, the knees aren't bending, the way they used to anymore.
Look, man, I'm with you. I don't think the general movie going public is, because there's an entire genre of old man gets revenge action movies. Michael Caine had 100%. Like Harry Brown or whatever. I think the Jeff Bridges one that came out last year was straight up called The Old Man or something.
Yeah.
It's absurd. These guys are like in their 70s. It's ridiculous.
And if you want to be like a badass and all that, I get it. But once you're into hand-to-hand combat, I'm a little like, okay, this is like it's a little much. Now we're professional wrestling, which is cool. But I'm just like, just respect, I think she's great. I think Viola Davis is a star. I think she's awesome. If you're asking me if she's a great actor or not, she is a great actor. I don't know if she's no Daniel Day-Lewis, she's not, it's not like she's going to show up as like Abraham Lincoln in another movie or like, I I bet whatever we see her next, she's going to be like a high status, standoffish woman who has like moments of vulnerability. I think that's kind of her lane.
Well, I think the thing you and I are going to see her in next is the movie Air. So that'll be interesting. She plays Michael Jordan's mom.
Dude, high status, standoffish woman with moments of vulnerability. I'm telling you, it's going to happen. Kevin, I've got a very important question for you.
Yes, please.
Is the Woman King better than Megan?
Yes.
Is it better than Cocaine Bear?
Oh, yeah.
Is it better than Creed 3?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I think so.
Is it better than Everything Everywhere All at Once?
No.
Yeah?
No, I don't think so. What do you think?
No.
What do you think about Creed 3? Do you think it takes it?
I don't think it's better than Creed 3.
Huh. Oh, that's
I think between
tough,
Creed
dude.
3 and Cocaine Bear is right where it belongs. We have Cocaine Bear above Bahubali. We're going to get into this in review preview, but my notes have been added. We're going to discuss it. We're going to get into it more.
Oh boy, here we go. We're going to be talking about that right back here tomorrow on our review preview for March and April. We got some mailbag questions to answer, so we'll see you right back here tomorrow. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for listening. Send us an email, nerdy30@gmail.com. And until tomorrow, stay nerdy, everybody.
Stay nerdy.
Bye.
Bye.